Hello there. Just making sure to stabilize my connection. 60 FPS and solid connection, no dropped frames, looking good so far. Welcome to the stream. Live coding in React. My name is Eric, and we are going to code up a rock, paper, scissors game in React, in simple old React. When you are new to the stream, say hi, drop some line in the chat, say hi to everyone else, and yeah, this is interactive. You can always talk to me, like chat with me, and ask me things, or like like you can tell me to do things otherwise in a different way. When I start implementing stuff, then you can always push me to the left or right, depending on where you want to go, and I will follow. I'm gonna wait for just a few more moments to see who else joins the chat so we can have a conversation. Let me greet everyone. Hey, everyone. Coming up next is rock, paper, scissors. Scissors, scissors. In React. Send. There we go. Cengiz. Hello, Cengiz. Nice to see you here. I'm curious to see who else is going to join the stream. Maybe someone from yesterday. Maybe someone new. I am all set up. I can actually turn to my screen share. Let's see. There we go. That's what we're going to work with. We have a preview on the left side and our code editor on the right. We are going to code up rock, paper, scissors. My name is Eric, if you're new to the stream. I'm a web development coach, and today I'm coding a simple game, rock, paper, scissors, live, and with all the mistakes and hiccups that might come up. Are we ready? I'm ready. Shall we start? I think we can. We don't have too many viewers, but that's okay. Maybe someone else is going to drop by in just a few seconds, and we can start by setting up a project for now. Let's go with npm and create a Vite app. Create Vite at latest. So we're not going to use next or anything like that. We'll stay with plain old React. Let's call this rock, paper, scissors, live coding. It's going to be React, and it's going to be JavaScript with SWC, which is the speedy web compiler. It's faster than Babel, which is why we're going to choose SWC. CD into what do we call it? Rock, paper, scissors, live coding? Right, and then open this up. Since Vite does not execute any of the scripts, we're gonna have to do it ourselves. npm install real quick. Let's spin up those node modules. And in the meantime, let's have a look. So there is something set up already, like this basic template thing that has some logos and a button with the simple counter state. We're not going to need any of that. So, but let's start up the app first. npm run dev, and then we'll see which of these things we can delete. Localhost. There we go. Click it. There it is. So that's our starting point for our rock, paper, scissors. Let's close this. What do we not need? What are the things we can delete? Actually, pretty much everything. Yeah, let's just get rid of everything. Yeah, we'll delete that as well. State. Let's get rid of most of the markup. Clean slate. Rock, paper, scissors. That's what we're gonna do. And in fact, I can put this into an H1. There we go. Good. Let's start by thinking about which steps we need to take in order to get to a game that functions as you would expect for rock, paper, scissors. So what are the individual steps that we would have to take in order to implement this game? Right, so let's just write this down from the top of our minds. What do we have to do in order to display rock, paper, scissors, for example? I mean, somehow we need to display some icons, like icons or emojis or what have you. Okay, so that's one thing. We have to display something visual. Okay, next. I think you're gonna have a few things, so let's copy that. What else? We need to display emojis. We need to be able to make a selection. Like we have to pick. And by we, I mean the player. So we as a player need to be able to pick an option. And whenever you have something like that, where you have to pick something, where you have to track something, that's always state. So you always need to think of state when you think of changing things, tracking things over time. Then that is always realized with state. Okay, so we need to make a selection. Player needs to be able to select one option. We display icons or emojis as options. We have 3 of those. And the player needs to be able to select one of these options. Okay, makes sense so far. What else? We need let's make it so that we are playing against a bot. So there's always 2 players, obviously, for rock, paper, scissors, and the second player is not going to be a human player, but it's going to be a bot. Okay, so the bot needs to make a selection. Bot needs to be able to make a selection. Yeah, makes sense. So what do we have now? We have icons, rock, paper, scissors. We have a state for the player who selects one of these options. We have a bot, which we can track another state if you like. Maybe we even have to. So the bot makes a selection. Okay, we need to determine the winner. Determine the winner and display it. Display the winner. Or like a message. Like you won or the bot won or something like that. Okay, so that's done. Winner. What else? Can't think of anything else. Let's remove those for now. I think that's gonna be it. We need emojis, we need a player, we need a bot, and we need to know who won the game. Okay. So far, I'm happy with where we're gonna go. Now, how do we start? The best thing you can always do is to have something display. Like for now, we only have a headline, H1 headline. And if you want to display some options, then now would be a good time to do that. So displaying stuff is always a good thing to start with. Let's see, how are we going to display these options? We could do something like this. Create an options array like this. And then use this options array here, for example. Map over it and do something with every individual icon or emoji somehow, I don't know, somehow displayed here. Some kind of element. Could be a div, could be something else. What makes more sense? A div, span, this is an option. The player needs to be able to select an option. Well, if the player needs to be able to click on it, then maybe it makes more sense to have a button. If you don't agree, let me know. But that makes sense for me for now. And then we can display the icon or whatever this in here. Like this. So whenever you're using JavaScript, you have to create an expression within those curly braces, and then you are allowed to use JavaScript. Whenever you open curly braces, you are in JavaScript land within JSX. Obviously, you don't need to do that above the return, but below the return is JSX land, and whenever you need to write JavaScript, you need those curly braces. All right, so our array is empty, so when I save for now, nothing's going to change because it's empty and we are mapping over an empty array, which effectively does nothing. So let me show you a simple trick. You can, if you're on Mac, you can hit Fn and dot, or if you're on Windows, you can press the window key and dot. And that's going to open up. Yeah, what is that? You can select emojis from this window. You can select GIFs and other things. But the point is, you don't have to Google for anything. You can just search for, say, a fist, because that's going to be the rock, right? So rock, then paper, maybe something like a hand. Let's pick this one, back of a hand, raised hand. Yeah, the back of a hand is good. And what else do we need? We need something like this, right? Victory. That's gonna be the scissors. So we have to separate them, make them individual entries, and because they are characters, we need to put them in. Are they characters? Not sure. What is that actually? It's an invalid character. Well, we need to make them strings anyway. And now they are viable entries in an array that can be displayed and mapping it into a button and giving the button the icon itself as the content. So if I save now, we'll have a button with our emojis, Unicode, whatever this is. Okay. In case you're wondering, like, why is this button styled already? Well, that's because it's been already styled by default in index CSS. So whenever you create a Vite app, you'll have some basic styles applied. If you don't like them, override them, delete them, make some new thing in here. You can use Tailwind, for example, or some other CSS preprocessor, whatever. I'm not going to do that for now. Let's stick with what we have here. But we could maybe add, we could add some space between them. We could do it like this, real simple, like margin left, for example, which is not a good thing to do, but this is quick. It's an easy fix. 2 pixels. And then we'll have some space between these buttons. Not how I would usually do it. I would actually use a gap, make it flex, for example, then define a gap in X direction, and then maybe make it 4 pixels. Something like that. Not ideal, but it does what I need. So now we have our options, rock, paper, and scissors. They are buttons. We can actually click them, but nothing's going to happen yet. But we can tick this off because we already implemented this one. We can display options. Great. So next. The next obvious thing to implement. What is that? Well, I think this one. The player needs to be able to select one option. Yeah, sounds good. So let's do that. The button needs to be able to do something. So let's create an on-click event and pass it something that we don't have yet. Let's call this handle. Handle player selection. Set player selection. Oh, did I drop player? Did my connection drop? Hope I'm still online. My OBS just notified me that I successfully re-established connection. Yeah, my connection is not stable today. So not stable. But I hope you can still follow along. Otherwise, if it gets too bad, then yeah, I have to cancel and stream another time. Let me know real quick if you can still follow along, like in a sense of you can hear me and you can see me and the stream is working fine. Can you let me know that everything's fine for you? Because otherwise I have to maybe restart the stream or something. I've had connection issues today, like a lot. I had to restart the router 3 times already, so I'm not surprised that it's still not working properly. Put a question in the chat. Let me know if the stream does in fact work fine. Because if not, there is no point in continuing if you can't even follow along. Okay. Yeah. The stream does work fine. Okay, that's good. Thank you for the feedback. So let's continue. Let's continue. Where were we? Handle selection. We want to make the player select something. Okay. So how do we go about that? We someone need to have the player maybe put something as an initial state in here, like an empty string, and then have the player select whatever it is that we actually clicked. For that, since we only have these icons here, we need to pass them as an argument into the function itself, because otherwise we just don't know which icon we clicked. So we need to pass this information along to this function like this. But because we are now calling this function, we need to wrap it into another callback so that it only gets called when you actually click on the button. That way, we do get the icon up here. We can call this icon, or we can call this something else. We can call this selection if we will. That's the moment where you can decide how to call your parameter. It could be broccoli, it could be sausage, what have you. And that is the selection that we're gonna, pass along to our new state. And it's gonna change from the empty string to whatever we selected here. So that should actually work. Now we need to display our selection so we can see that it actually did work out the way we expect. Let's just paste it here. Player selection, save, and we broke our app. No, did we? Let's see what happens. Console, we have use state is not defined. Oh yeah, maybe we should import it. How about that? Import use state. There we go. I'm still surprised that I'm not getting yelled at in the editor that I did not import use state. Like it should be something like a squiggly red line below use state or something, but it's not happening for me since yesterday. Kind of sad. I'm not sure I like it. I do want to get yelled at sometimes. So let's see. We have rock, paper, scissors. We have our 3 selections. Now we can click on the middle one. Yes, and it does get selected. We have now successfully added a state for the player. We have added an onClick event that handles the selection. So if I choose a different icon, then it's going to display that icon. So it does work as expected. It sets the new player state and we display that new player state in a new HTML tag. In this case, it's an H2 tag. We could, change that to be paragraph, for example, but then it's going to be displayed in smaller icons, I think. Yeah, it's going to be smaller. Actually, I do like it a bit bigger, and I can't be bothered to use paragraph and then style it, because I could do that as well. But I'm not going to do that for now. Just going to keep it as an h2 tag for now. Now what? We have a selection. Now we can take this off, done. Now we need the bot to make a selection, right? So whenever we click on one of these icons, the bot needs to make a selection, and then we need to display that selection as well. Maybe something like versus, and then have the bot selection here, right? So like something like bot selection, which means we need another state. Set urb bot selection. Use state. It's not set initially. Then let's save. Now we have nothing against nothing. Now we select rock. This can be rock against nothing because we haven't made the bot select anything. Let's do that as well. When we don't need another function. We can do this in here. So in this function where we set the new player state, player selection state, we can also make sure to have the bot select something. But the question is, how do we select something randomly? Because we don't want to, do the same thing, because we could do this, for example, and that would select rock all the time, every time. Would never do anything else. So if I choose paper, and the bot is going to choose rock all the time. No matter what I choose, it's going to stay rock. So that's not what we want. We want the bot to be more dynamic, more random, which is why we need something else here. So the logic that we need is based on random choice. There is a package. Is it a package? I don't know if it's a package. Do you call it a package? It's an API. It's an API in JavaScript, I think. If it's not web APIs, it's JavaScript, math, and math has a function which is called random. Now, random gives you something between 0 and 1. And I think excluding, so it doesn't give you an actual 1 or an actual 0, but something between that. We can use this random number between 0 and 1 in order to make a selection in our array. How? Well, let's see. We have 3 entries. Index 0, index 1, and index 2. 0, 1, 2. Let's think through what math random does. Let me show this in the console. We have math random. If I run it, we're going to get a random number between 0 and 1 every time we run it. Now assume that we have a very low value like this. And let's further assume that we want to select. No, let's go with a bigger number. This is too small a number. We need something like 0.9. Right? So something like, something like this. So if you do get a higher number randomly, and we multiply it with 3, because we have 3 items, let's multiply this number times 3. Let's just play around, right? Just play around. We get something like 2.45. if we discard of the point, whatever there is, if we just look at the 2 here, then that would be the last item in our array, which is quite convenient. We only need to get rid of all the decimal places. We can do that. For example, we can do something like random, right? And then we can go ahead and say random times 3. And whatever is the result of random times 3 is going to get rounded or floored, maybe. We can floor this. Let's take this number. Let's make math floor. Then you'll see that it just gets rid of all the decimal places. It keeps the 2. It's a clean number which we can use to access the last index in our array. Conversely, if we have a very low number like this one or like this one, when we multiply it by 3, what do we get? We get 0.1 something. Now let's do the same thing. Math floor, put this number in. What do we get? We get 0. So if we follow with this logic, that we take a random number, we multiply it by the number of items in the array, then at the extreme, we get the last index in our array, which is 2. And at the other extreme, if it's a very low number, we get 0 as the lowest possible result or number, which we can use to access our first item. Right? And that's the only 2 things we need to worry about when we do something like this. We need to worry about the extremes on the left and the right side. So the smallest possible selection and the highest possible selection to make sure that we do not go out of bound. If you were in Java, you would get thrown a array out of bounds exception or something like that. Not in JavaScript, because JavaScript is just too convenient. It's gonna throw back an undefined if you try to access an index that doesn't exist yet. So you're not gonna get an error, but you still don't want to hit an undefined. You want to stay within your array, right? So if we follow this logic, we made sure that we can select all items from the first to the last. So we could create another constant and say random selection, right? We can make this random number, for example, random selection, and then, or it's not selection actually, it's random index, and then with that random index, we are going to select option index. There we go. No, random index like this. And we're going to access some random, what's it called? Options with an S. And that should make the bot select one of these 3 randomly every time. Let's save. Let's close the console. Let's try this out. Reload. I'm going to select paper. The bot selected scissors. Nice. Rock. Still scissors. Let me select scissors. It's still at scissors. What? Paper. Okay, so now it changed. I got worried there for just a little bit. Okay, so it does select randomly. It just did scissors like 4 times in a row, but it is random. Yeah, scissors, rock, scissors, paper. There you go. So you have truly a pseudo random selection of your 3 choices. Okay, done. But not quite. Actually, yeah, let's take this off. That's okay. But to be honest, I don't like that too much. I want to add a delay. I don't want the bot to make the selection instantaneously. So whenever I make a selection, I want it to be more suspense and have the bot kind of think and then decide and select something. So I want to simulate bot thinking time or something like that. How do we do that? We wrap the set bot selection in a timeout. Set timeout. Pass a callback in here and say, oh, how many seconds do we want to wait? 2, 3, let's wait 2 seconds. 2000 milliseconds, let's paste this in here. And now we have a set timeout. Every time that we make a selection, we start a timer with 2000 milliseconds. And after those 2000 milliseconds, this is going to be called. We're going to make a selection randomly. Yeah, we got access to the scope, so that's fine. Maybe not quite as clean, but that's okay. And now we should be able to see a slight delay after our own selection. Let's test. I'm going to select rock. 1, 2. There you go. Now you have the bot selection. Now the same thing applies if I do that again. If I select paper, 1, 2, there you go. So every time that you make a selection, you're going to have to wait 2 seconds until you see the selection of the bot. So I like that better. That's much more like realistic. It's more suspense to the game. Okay. Now there's another thing that we could add to make this more realistic. Whenever I make a selection as a player, I don't have an icon here from the bot. And when I make the selection again, then the old selection is still present. Maybe we could add something like a die, like this, in order to indicate that the bot is making a selection, it's kind of thinking, or it's randomly selecting something. So while we wait these 2 seconds, we want to display this. Okay, so let me remove this for now, and let's say one line below, we are going to set the die in here instantly. So whenever we click, we want to instantly, after we set our selection for the player, we want to set the die for the bot selection. And then after 2 seconds, it's going to make a decision for which icon it chose. But in the meantime, we want this die to be displayed. Make sense? Let's see. I'm going to hit, oh yeah, look at that. That looks good. So I select rock. We have a die for 2 seconds, and then the selection comes in. Yeah, so that makes more sense. Now we actually have reactivity in the sense that we, as a player, make a selection, and then we see, oh yeah, the bot is making their selection, and then there it is. Looking good. I like it. Add a delay to selection. Nice. And it's still not a lot of code. Like if you look at the HTML markup, JSX, it's nothing really. You have a headline, you have your states displayed, and you're just mapping through a static array which never changes. You only need to add an onClick event, which sets the state according to the icon that you chose. And the real meat of the logic is within the handled selection function, which sets different states and which makes this random selection. So I think this part is the most complex. everything else is not that complex. So I apologize if I can't follow along with the chat. So if you are writing something in the chat on YouTube, I might not be able to see it. I'm not sure because I am within my OBS streaming software and I do not see anything posted in the chat except from half an hour ago. So I do see my last message, but I don't see anything else. If you are chatting, I'm not seeing it. That's what I wanted to say. If you are not chatting, then that's fine. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't see anything, any new chat messages coming in the last like half hour or so. And I actually don't know how to fix it. So if you are chatting, yeah, I need to somehow make that visible to me, but I don't know how. Oh well. Let's continue. We are still missing one last piece, which is the winner. How do we determine the winner? How do we display a message as a consequence of determining who won this game? I make a selection as a player. Then 2 seconds later, we have a selection made by the bot. And then we know who won this game. Okay, so this is the same thing as with tic-tac-toe. If you followed along in that tutorial, the only place we can determine who won this game is like here, for example. We'd have to write this here, or for example, maybe below our function. This is where we can check win. Check who did actually win. So we can do it here, we can do it here, up there. The reason is the rendering in React. So whenever you use something like set player selection, set bot selection, whenever you do that, then the entire component is re-rendered again. So you do not have access to the new state just yet. You did say set the state to the die, but it didn't happen yet. So you don't have access to the new state from within this handle function, which means you have to wait for React to re-render this component, and then it does. It re-renders with the new state, and that's why we need to place it here or like there below the states in order to check the states of both players, player and bot, and then we can see who won this game. Yeah, so it's due to how React works internally that we have to do it here. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. I hope not. Okay. I'm gonna do something that is called a derived state. So I'm gonna create a variable. Let's call this outcome. And we're gonna set it to something. The thing is, this is called a derived state, meaning it is derived from the states that we actually have. So it's not a state variable. I don't need a third state variable. I just need to look at this state and this state and decide what happens. Did the player win or did the bot win? And that result, that outcome, I can put in my variable outcome. And that would be a derived state derived from these state. It's kind of a state, not really. but it's just a value that is derived from these states. It's called derived state. And I think it's underused. So people tend, especially beginners, tend to create another state when they don't actually need one. And this is a case where you don't need another state. You can just create a plain old simple variable, make it let because you need to override the value, maybe, depending on the logic. So this can't be a const because we have to be able to reassign outcome a new value. We could say something like pending, which means let's display this thing in a paragraph or something. Outcome. So we just want to see what outcome is. Who won the game? Now, for the time being, as long as we display the die, no one has won or lost the game, which means we need to display something like pending as a state for we are still determining the winner because we don't know. That's the pending state. Okay, so let's save. Let's just see if that would work the way we think. Oh, it's going to be pending all the time. I guess we need to add something here. Let's see. So this is going to be the second piece of code that is going to be somewhat more complex. We need to think about different possibilities. So as long as bot selection our bot selection is not the, where is it, that die, as long as it is not like this, not die. We want to make sure, like, what are we doing? We are trying to check who won, right? Because this is the initial state, it's pending, and it can change to win or lose depending on player and bot selection after the bot made a selection, after the timeout. So if bot selection is not the die, and what else? We need to add something else, because if the bot made a selection and it's the same selection that the user made, so if both selected rock, then nobody won. Then we cannot determine that one or the other won the game. So we need to exclude that by saying that player selection is also not the same as the bot selection, because if that is the case, then nobody won. Okay, so you can only determine the winner if the bot is not still rolling, and after having rolled, after having made the choice is not the same as the player choice. So that we have to exclude that. Then we can determine if the player won or the bot won. So how we're going to do that? Don't know, but we have an else as well. Else, what does else mean? Else means bot selection is actually the die, but we're not interested in that. We are interested in the case when they are the same. Okay, so we need to add another if and say if they are actually the same. And you can use strict equal if you like. Let's keep it consistent, because if it is the same, then nobody won. It's a draw. Okay, and this we don't know. Actually, let's keep this. Let's try it out. I'm gonna make a selection rock. Pending. There you go. Look at that. So the bot selected rock as well. And because we went down the second condition, else if they were the same, so the bot was no longer rolling, right? And they were not the same, which means this case had to be checked. They are the same, player and bot, they are the same. And then outcome gets assigned a new value, draw, and we are displaying draw down here. There we go. And that's the result of this game. Let's do it again. Let's roll paper, still a draw. Scissors. Okay, so now we are in the case where the bot made a different selection, and now we don't know for now how to determine the winner, but the outcome is displayed of 3 question marks, which is correct as well. We only need to determine the winner and say like you won or you lost, for example. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that we know which options are superior to other options? So we somewhere need to know the win state. We could do something like this: win states, for example. And think of all combinations when the player wins. So it doesn't make sense. So we can think of, for example, the player wins when you have something like the player selected rock and the bot selected scissors. Player wins because rock beats scissors, right? Okay, next. We need another array because this is one option that the player can win. Let's duplicate this actually a few times. What is another option? So if I select paper, how can I win? I can win if the bot selected rock. Does that make sense? I'm collecting all possible win states for the player. That's what I'm doing. Now, what if I select scissors? If I select scissors, how can I win? I can only win if the bot selected paper. So that's pretty straightforward. And I don't think I left any win states out, did I? Because rock only beats scissors. It does not beat paper. No. So every icon beats only one other icon. So we only have 3 possible win states like this. Now we can make use of those states right here. We can say win states, and because it is an array and it has arrays, oh, let's see, I forgot something. This needs commas because they are different entries. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. This is the first entry in my outer array. Second, why did it include parentheses? I don't need them. I don't know what they do. I don't know. Yeah, now this looks much more like it. Okay. So we have an outer array and we have individual entries, which are arrays again, pairs. You could call it tuple. You would call this tuple in Python, for example. JavaScript doesn't typically have tuples. We would use arrays for that. But yeah, if you like, you can call this a tuple. You can call this an array, a list. And we have 3 arrays within the outer array. Okay, so how do we make sure, how can we determine the winner using this array? We can do that by doing this. It's a list. Win states, it's a list. We can loop through our list and see if any of those entries match player and bot selection. And if it does, then we know that the player won. For example, if I selected scissors, I'm here, did the bot select rock? No, it did not. It's like I would need the bot to have selected paper, then I would have won. But since this combination is not within this array, it means I lost. If the bot had selected paper, this one, then it would have been in this array, this option, and I know I won. That's how I can determine who won the game. If it's in this list, the player won. If it's not in the list, the bot won this game. So we can use something that is called sum. Let's see, what does sum do? Determines the specified coefficient, returns true for there. It returns true for any element of an array. So if I can somehow create a condition within the array, within this callback sum, that matches, let's just do it. Let's just do it. It's a function, right? It receives a callback like all functions do. And for every state within my win states array, I'm going to check whether or not the state, and remember, what is state at this point? State is an entry. An entry, in this case, is another array. It's an array with 2 entries. So this, again, is an array. And because it's an array, I can access its items with an index like this, or like 0 and 1 are the only 2 possible indices which actually have a value. And I can compare it to player selection. And if this actually is what the player selected, and state at index 1 is bot selection, then I know, let's format this, then I know that I actually won. So if this is true, we can do it like this if we like. If this is true explicitly, then we can put something into outcome like win, or otherwise it's lose. So let's format again. It's a bit more complex now syntactically, but at the end of the day, winState.sum is a function that yields a result. It yields either true or false. And we can use that in order to see if it yields true. Then we can put win inside of outcome. Otherwise, we're going to put lose inside of outcome. Why? Because we said earlier, if our selection of the player and the bot is actually within this array, then we know the player won the game. So if it's true, then we won the game, and otherwise we lost the game. That's how we can determine the win state. Let's see if it works. Save. Reload. Rock. Paper. Did we lose? Yes, we lost. That makes sense. Let's select another rock. Doom. We lost again. I'll keep spamming rock. I don't care. I don't care. I gotta win sometime. Are you kidding me? Nah, finally. So the bot selected scissors. I still selected rock. So yeah, I did win because rock beats scissors. That makes sense. So this is working as expected, I would say. We could check if draw still is something that can happen. Yeah, there you go. So draw is still a case that can happen if both selections were the same. we are not going to go into this case because we made sure that we only run into this case if they are different. And if we're not different, we go into this block of code, we assign draw to outcome, and we display the outcome. So that's actually it. So I'm quite happy. We could still improve some things. The functionality is there. There we go. Rock, paper, scissors. I want to show you something else. One more thing. I don't quite like how this looks. State with index 0, index 1. You can do something else. You can destructure the state. The kind of like what is state? We have to look at the state again. Oh, it's an array. Right. We know that we can destructure objects and arrays. The same thing that we do here. This is destructuring. useState gives us back an array with 2 entries. And we can destruct these 2 entries by doing this const and then square brackets, first variable name, second variable name. We can call it whatever we want. We just have to make sure that the order is upheld. So you need, this is the state, and this is the state setter. And the same thing happens here. We can destructure for like player. You can call it whatever you want, player and bot, for example. And now we don't need to do this. We just say player. And we don't need to do this either. We can just say bot. And it's still gonna work the same. But it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's less tricky to do it like this because working with indices is always a hassle. And I think this is cleaner. It's maybe implicit as well because something is happening inside of this callback function that you might overlook easily. But I still think it's an elegant solution. Let's try. Rock. Paper. I lost. Okay, let's choose paper. I won. Nice. So it still works as expected. Oh, yeah, I think it's cleaner. We could add something else as well because this message, win, lose, draw, that's kind of disappointing. I think we can do better. We could display something like you won. So depending on the state, right, we could display something like you won. Yay. Otherwise, this gets ugly really fast because we'd have to check if this is, for example, lose. Then we're going to display you lost. So we could do this, but it's really meh. It's not beautiful because we have nested ternary expressions. Like you won, let's see. Yeah, nothing because it's a draw. Right. And then we need another case for pending. Okay. So I don't like the syntax very much. It's difficult to read and it's difficult to maintain. We can do better. We can do something like shall we write another component? We could write a component and use it here. So what shall we call our component? We could call it display message or something, function display message. And display message simply displays paragraph with something. How do we know what to display? Well, we can keep track of all possible messages that we can display. Let's say possible messages. That's going to be an object. Why? Because we know all possible values of outcome. It's either pending, win, lose, or draw. It's either of these four. Now, we can do something like this and say, if this is pending, then you are going to display, say, wait for it, something like this. Maybe now you see where we are going. And if it is win, like this, then we display you win. And the same thing goes for lose, or loss, maybe. I'll keep lose. You lose. And we get another one, draw. Draw is going to be just draw. I think that's succinct enough. So these are all the possible states. And actually, we don't even need the string up here. So just a simple key, possible messages, all the possible outcomes. And now this is a component. So we could use it here like this, right? So that's the idea of what we want to do. We want to create a component which displays the message depending on this, the value of outcome. So we somehow need to pass like something like outcome. Let's call this outcome. We are passing the outcome variable into our display message. And now we need to make sure that we are accepting it here as well, outcome. And then we are passing it along to possible messages within our paragraph. Make sure we are using JavaScript. We are accessing the object, putting outcome as the key. We can access keys of our object like this. And actually, is that all there is? Is that everything? Let's see. We can test it. Draw. Oh, it's still saying draw. Why? Because player selection is actually the same. Oh yeah, so nobody selected anything yet. So initially they are the same, makes sense, which is why the message says it's a draw. How can we fix that? Possible there are different ways to fix it actually. Maybe this one is the fastest. If we say bot initially has a die as a symbol, then we're gonna display wait for it. Not quite what we want. No, I don't like that. Let's think. If you have an idea, chat, let me know. can't think of a quick and dirty way to fix this. Hmm. So this is a draw. Maybe we can. Hmm. They are the same. Maybe we can make sure that they actually are non-empty. They are the same and non-empty. Hmm. Quick and dirty. If player selection, like if there is nothing in it, and there's nothing in bot selection either, so it's actually empty. It's an empty string. We could say outcome is something else entirely, which is nothing. Yeah, why not? Empty string. Hmm. And else, it's a draw. If we do that, then outcome is an empty string. We are looking for an empty string in the object. We can't find it, which we could use to say, do you actually have an entry? If you don't, we have an outcome and display the message. Otherwise, null, nothing, don't display anything. It's not quite how I'd like it to be, but let's keep it for now. Save. So it doesn't say draw, which is good. If we select rock, then it's gonna say wait for it, and then it's gonna determine who won the game. So this is working as expected. I would like this to be like that, but I don't like this paragraph being empty because it does exist within our markup. You know, it is, oh, we have to still make sure we pass a key prop. We'll take care of that in a second. Thing is, the p tag is always present, even if it's empty. I don't quite like that. So let's make maybe yeah, let's do it like this. We need to copy this and then return outcome. Return outcome. If you actually have an outcome, if it's not empty, then you can return a paragraph with this content. Otherwise, you won't display anything. So that makes more sense because now if I save, the paragraph is going to disappear. So it's not even in the HTML anymore. But if we do so make a selection, it is going to appear now because it needs to appear because now we actually have a viable state, valid state. Okay, yeah, I like that. That's better. Now let's make sure that our button receives a key prop. And it's the icon itself. Save. Check our console. It's hopefully not displaying any errors anymore. And it is not. Yeah, it's fine for now. Like the icon is different in every case, so the key is going to be different every time. So we're not adding anything to the list, we're not removing anything from the list, so this is fine. Try again. Paper. Rock. I won. Nice. Scissors. I lost. there you go. Rock, paper, scissors. Most difficult thing, I think, is this, because this is not obvious. It's really quite the mental effort to get behind what's happening here in detail. So you have to know what sum does. Sum is, it's a function that returns true if it hits a true. Like if you were to return true within here, then it would stop running through the array and return true. And if it were like, if it never returned true within the callback, then it's going to run until the end of the array and return false, because it didn't find any one entry that would satisfy our condition. And what that is good for is you can use sum in order to find at least one entry in the array that fits our criteria. And if it does fit, in our case, then we know that player won, because these are the player win states, right? Maybe we should add this player, let's see, player win states. Let's make sure we know which states we mean. It's the player who's going to win, not the bot. Player win states. Right. Anything else? Because I think I'm happy with this so far. Checked everything off, all done. Slight delay for the selection of the bot. And if you want to have access to the code, there's a repo. I've already coded up everything prior to this live session. Link is in the description. You can go check it out. Don't forget to go to pull requests, right? Because the code is not within the main branch. I have separate branches, and every branch is like has its own pull request, such that you can follow along with the progress of each pull request. So first we added options, right? We just displayed our options and nothing else. That's the first pull request for the branch show options, right? And there's a short description for what happened here. And then the second branch and the second pull request is adding things on top of that. So now we already have our options, and now we switched the order of the icons here, and then I added a button with an on click, and that's how it progresses through the entire pull request thing here. So files changed, check it out, see what I did there. And I actually may have coded up something slightly differently. As you can see, where is it? Here. So I created a set timeout, and that I inlined pretty much everything in one single line, which I didn't here. So we create consts and use those values to work with it. So it's doing the same thing, but this is shorter, crispier. Have a look, check it out. Link in the description. And then that is it for today. That was rock, paper, scissors in React. And if you want to play it, visit this repo. Fork it, run it, play it. Okay. So thanks for having me, and see you next time.